to Everyday Cooking with Ann. It's strawberry season and it's also Mother's Day season. So we're gonna make a very simple dessert that anybody can make. It's so simple. And we're using a hot milk sponge cake to do it. And we're using it in just a very small 9-inch square pan. So it's very small. If you want to double the recipe, I can show you that in my recipe book as well. But let's get started, and we're gonna start off by, we are going to break some eggs, and 2 eggs and 1 cup of sugar. And we're going to come over here and bring it to our mixer with the wire whip, because we are going to be beating these eggs and sugar from 4 to 6 minutes. You want this whole mixture to double in volume and look a lot different than when you start. You want it to be very light and lemon colored. So let's get started. We're going to put the sugar in. This is 1 cup of sugar. And then we're going to crack the eggs. These are 2 large eggs, preferably at room temperature. We're going to put our Breville mixer down, and I have a little timer on my Breville, so I'm going to let this get started, and you can see what it looks like to start with, so you can see the difference when it's finished. So right now it's pretty dark and lemon colored, and I'm going to put this on high and time this now for 4 to 6 minutes. All right, this has been beating for about 6 minutes. You can see that it's a nice light and lemon colored mixture, ready to add to the rest of this cake in a few minutes. Okay, let me explain a little bit about the steps on this cake. This would be step 1 that we would do to prepare the cake. Step 2 is going to be putting in a 1/2 cup of milk and about a 1/2 cube of butter and some vanilla in a nice saucepan, which we're going to take over and show you. But before we do that, I want to show you the pan. I'm using a 9x9 square pan. You can also double this recipe and make a 9x13 pan as well, and I'll show you the directions on that when I show you the recipe below. We also want to show you what's going to go into the last part of the mixture, which is the flour and salt and baking powder. Just a teaspoon of baking powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1 cup of flour. So it's not very much flour. It's going to be a very spongy, almost like a angel food cake, but it's going to have more texture. It's actually better than angel food cake. So this is a fun cake to make. Also, when we get finished, I'll show you, we're going to go ahead and slice our strawberries and put a little bit of sugar on that to make a nice juice. That's the baking powder and salt that we have in with our mixture with our flour. And then we're going to make my homemade whipping cream, which I'm sure if any of you watched any of my other videos know I use whipping cream with almost every dessert that I make because it's my favorite food. Okay, let's go over to the stove, and I'm going to show you how to do the hot milk portion of the cake. You want to make sure it doesn't really come to a boil, but it has to be very hot. So let's go to the stove. Next step is so simple. Just a 1/2 cup of milk. I heated my pan up a little bit to get it started. And a 1/2 cube of butter, which is about 4 tablespoons. And as soon as this comes to almost a boil, melted and come to a boil, then we are going to come over and mix our egg and sugar. And we're going to also mix all of it together to make this very simple cake. As soon as this boils, I mean not boils, but gets very hot, we'll put the vanilla in. We only want to put this in last minute because we don't really want to cook the vanilla. So the vanilla is a very important part because adds so much flavor to the cake as well. So I'm just waiting for this butter to melt and a few bubbles around the edges, and it'll be plenty hot. Just about ready to boil. It's got little bubbles around the edge. I'm going to put in my teaspoon of vanilla and mix this together. Now I'm going to put this back into my measuring cup because I don't want this spilling all over when I add it to the cake mixture, okay? Eggs and sugar have actually been beating for about 8 minutes, just the eggs. Then we added the sugar gradually and went another 4 minutes, and it's pretty much doubled in volume. And now I'm gonna add part of the flour mixture. And then I'm gonna let that kind of mix in together a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of the hot milk mixture. It has a vanilla in it, by the way. And then I'm going to add the rest of the flour want this just to barely mix together. You don't want to flatten this at all. So I'm going to add the rest of this hot milk mixture. I'm turning up it just a little bit to make sure that it's all nice and incorporated, the flour with the milk. All right, now I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to immediately add this to my prepared pan. Okay, this is the last segment where we're actually putting the cake together. This cake baked for about 25 minutes. Okay, and it's nice and fluffy and soft and a little bit crunchy on top, which makes it really good. So it's a hot milk sponge cake, and it honestly makes the best strawberry shortcake. It really, really does. So I have been having my sliced strawberries, which I used my little trusty strawberry tool. And I'm going to go ahead and I put a couple of tablespoons of sugar on it, so it's been sitting in the sugar, and now I'm going to mash these berries up a little bit because you want all that yummy berry juice. You want to keep them mostly intact on those slices, but you want to have some juice going on top of the cake too. So this has been sitting out for about an hour while the cake was baking and cooling, our strawberries. And so now you want to serve your cake. You've got your hot milk cake, and you're going to put on your berries on top like this with some of this juice coming down. And of course, a nice big huge dollop of whipped cream on top of your cake. And here is your strawberry shortcake. Enjoy for Mother's Day.